Hey all, back with another Spotlight with Context, and today we are talking about the upcoming update to Captain Britain. I'm going to jump right into the attributes here because that is kind of the important part. Where are we going with this? She's always had some cool things in her kit, but has never really found much of a place in the meta. So right off the start, we have survivability of 3.5. A lot of this comes down to her reducing the opponent's critical damage rate through those exhaustions. She is relatively well protected against crits, and when you combine that with a large bulwark, she can avoid a fair amount of damage. Damage of 3, you can get a really solid loop going, but her loop is built around somewhat longer fights. So this 3 kind of reflects it's not going to be super impressive in battlegrounds. It's going to be serviceable in something more like, war mini bosses, and then you will start getting some serious prowess going in longer fights. And that averages out to roughly about a 3. Ease of use of 4, kind of along those same lines. Her kit is built around a longer loop, and so you kind of don't have to rush it. Assuming the fight is long enough for you to have time, you kind of just build up to special 3, and then that lets you throw a bunch of other specials, and you get a bunch of prowess and hit really hard. It's not very complicated. Utility of 2.5. The exhaustion has a bit of utility, but for the most part, this is focused on her slow, right? That was the big piece of utility she used to have, and it is back and improved because now it can become passive against skill opponents. So that's pretty much all there is, but access to a passive slow is quite nice. And then Defender Strength of 4, this is the biggest change. The old version of Captain Britain didn't have a lot going on defensively unless you mistimed the decks of that special one because the sword she throws has travel time, and projectiles with travel time catch people like me off guard sometimes. But short of just being accidentally deleted by messing up that dex, there wasn't a lot to the fight. Now there is a fair amount to it, and we will go over that very shortly. So just touching on strengths and weaknesses real quick here. She has a lot of Neuroshocks. That's kind of her main damage source other than just prowess boosting her specials. And the prowess feeds directly into the Neuroshocks, so they play nicely together. Additionally, she is good about cutting through positive energy resistance. This is not an energy vulnerability, so taking it negative won't, boost things further, but it does allow her to avoid characters just slowing her down with large amounts of energy resistance. And then big weakness is cowardice. We will talk about this exact math later, but cowardice slows her way, way down. So getting right into the abilities, I'm going to start with the signature ability here, and please let me know how you feel about this. We have internally more often been organizing our design docs with the signature ability first because that's what players see first in game. Personally, I think I still prefer, for teaching purposes, having the signature ability at the end once you know how the base kit functions, and so I will definitely be doing that at least for Nico, as that is how I built her Spotlight, but let me know how you feel about this one. I'm open to convincing. So, on that note, Captain Britain's exhaustions last up to 10% longer for each psionic charge, and then Psionic Mode, which she still has access to, increases the duration as though she had 10 psionic charges. Additionally, each personal Neuroshock reduces the opponent's energy resistance by up to 35% of their current positive energy resistance to a maximum of 100. And that's what we talked about earlier. She can cut through positive energy resistance, but she's not going to send energy resistance negative. Additionally, note that the maximum here is 100%, not 3 effects. That's what gets you to 100% when you're at SIG 200, but at lower SIGs you can still get that 100% reduction as long as you have more Neuroshocks. It's kind of like Angela's SIG in that way. Getting into the base kit, first off, her basic attacks deal energy damage instead of physical. That has some benefits and some drawbacks. Against non-tech champions, her personal Neuroshock and exhaustion passives cannot have their duration or their ability accuracy reduced. So You can't use skills with defensive ability accuracy reduction to bypass these, as an example. Captain Britain starts each fight with a 3% safeguard passive. This is a major threat, as we saw on Dark Phoenix. When inflicted with a special drain effect, or as an attacker after reducing an incoming hit's damage, this safeguard is removed. So special drain is a new effect. It does not actually live on anybody yet. You'll see it soon. Surprise, surprise, there's going to be a tech champion before too long. But the important thing to note is that when you are playing with her as an attacker, when this safeguard saves you from an incoming hit's damage, then it goes away. So you kind of get one freebie, and then you have to wait for it to come back. On that note, when the safeguard is removed or prevented, Captain Britain regains it after 20 seconds, unless she is still suffering from a special drain effect. When either champion is knocked down, or when Captain Britain is struck by a critical hit, the opponent is inflicted with a non-stacking exhaustion passive for 4 seconds. So that critical hit trigger is in her kit right now in the live game, but now when either champion is knocked down, this also happens. This is a pretty chunky exhaustion passive. One of them won't zero out most champions' crit damage, but you stack 3 or 4 of them, and you probably will stop getting any real benefit. There are also other effects, which we will get to now when we talk about her Neuroshocks. Her Neuroshock passives deal energy damage over 10 seconds, scaling with base attack only. As a reminder, Neuroshocks also turn off miss on the opponent just by existing. The potency of her Neuroshocks is increased by her current prowess potency, but is doubly reduced by her current cowardice potency, up to a maximum of 200. So, digging into exactly what the math here means, that means the sum total of all of the prowess effects on her is then, as a percentage, applied to her Neuroshocks. And so if you have enough prowess to give you 200% extra special damage, then your Neuroshocks are also increased by 200%. However, this is looking at prowess, I have been told, although I admit I haven't personally run the math and checked the exact numbers, that stat focus, the special damage stat focus that we often colloquially call prowess, even though that's not exactly what it is, does not contribute to this. Feel free to verify yourself once you get your hands on a 7-star, but just calling that out, I would recommend a different stat focus for her based on that. Now, the other side of this is very interesting as well, because cowardice can have up to a 90% potency, like weakness, and that's going to be basically applied twice to this. So if she has a 40% cowardice on her, then her Neuroshock potency is being reduced by 80%. So cowardice is very effective at cutting down on her Neuroshocks. Now, these two modifications are directly additive with each other, so that cowardice is not necessarily going to, multiply and take over for a bunch of prowess, but because the cowardice gets counted twice, this means that if you have enough cowardice, it can cancel out basically all of that prowess boost. When Betsy is inflicted with a shock or a bleed effect, she inflicts a Neuroshock passive, and then if she is struck by or strikes an opponent suffering from an exhaustion effect, she inflicts another Neuroshock passive, but this only triggers once every 1.5 seconds, which means roughly once or twice per combo or special. So if you're putting this together with the above, this means that if you don't have access to a very strong cowardice, you're going to want to try and use somebody who doesn't land crits against Betsy, because those crits put an exhaustion on you, and then striking into that exhaustion is going to put Neuroshocks on you. Additionally, when you knock her down, or hopefully not, but when she knocks you down, that exhaustion is also going to come online for 4 seconds, and you're going to have to be very careful with how much you hit her. It doesn't mean you can't hit her at all, because that 1.5 second cooldown does mean that you can kind of squeeze in a couple hits there if you really need to, but you have to be very careful after knocking Betsy down. And then last in this section, whenever the opponent purifies or cleanses a debuff, inflict 2 Neuroshock passives. So you really don't want to be using those effects against her. Next up, Betsy now has Psionic Charges, up to a maximum of 20. When she inflicts a personal Neuroshock or gains any prowess effect, she gains 1. When activating a special attack, she gains 6. When knocked down, she gains 2. But when inflicted with a Cowardice or Special Drain effect, she loses 2, and if she is knocked down while one of these 2 effects is active, then remove 2 more for each unique effect, up to a maximum of 4. So again, you really want to use Cowardice against her. If you don't have access to Cowardice, then you're probably not going to be able to control these charges, and so you just have to be aware that they're boosting the duration of the exhaustions, and of this next section we're going to get to, her Psionic Mode. So when she reaches 10 or more Psionic Charges, if it's not already active, she enters Psionic Mode. This lasts for 1 second per Psionic Charge when activated, so at least 10 seconds, to 20. And it's paused during special attacks. While she's in Psionic Mode, she can't gain any more Psionic Charges, but does gain the following. Her personal Neuroshock passives tick faster, so that means that instead of dealing damage every half second, they're going to be dealing damage every 1/6 of a second, but it's the same damage, so you effectively get triple damage, which is very important because any personal Neuroshock passives inflicted during Psionic Mode are paused until it ends, meaning that you're not losing any duration on them, and they're dealing effectively triple damage. This is also a huge problem on defense, so if there's an exhaustion on you and she's in Psionic Mode, you definitely don't want to hit her and get those neuros on you. Next up, when activating a special attack, for each level of the special, she gains 1 indefinite prowess passive, and when Psionic Mode ends, she removes 3 of these. They stack up to a maximum of 30, each one is 15%, so that means that she can be increasing her special damage by up to 450%. Now obviously this means that if you are in a fight against her for a very long time, those Neuroshocks are going to hit that 200% cap, and even Cowardice is probably not going to save you. But because she removes 3 of her own prowess when Psionic Mode ends, she's probably not going to be stacking all that many on defense, and this is more a long fight ramp for an attacking Captain Britain. Additionally, she is stun immune during her dash and medium attacks. This is annoying on defense. Obviously, it makes her a bit harder to parry. But this is also very nice on offense because it means that you can go for some risky openings and not worry about being parried yourself. As a defender, Psionic Mode goes on cooldown for 15 seconds after it ends, but this also means that as an attacker, it doesn't. And so you are able, potentially, to get right back into it. So moving on to the special one, on activation, this inflicts a non-stacking exhaustion passive for 6 seconds. It's a very weak exhaustion, but it does give you that trigger for your neuros, and that means that on defense, you are going to want to avoid her throwing this because it's going to mean you basically can't hit her for 6 seconds. Additionally, each hit inflicts a non-stacking slow debuff for 16 seconds. If this is purified by a skill champion, then she inflicts a matching slow passive. While active, her personal exhaustions are paused. So this is basically entirely an attacker tool. There's a nice piece of utility that also keeps your exhaustions up and lets you just stack a bunch of neuros and gain a bunch of psionic charges. On defense, you mostly are worried about the exhaustion. Special 2, on activation, gain a non-stacking Bulwark passive, lasting until the next time Psionic Mode ends. While this Bulwark is active, basic attacks inflict a Neuroshock passive, including through block. So you want to avoid the special 1 because that means that you can't hit her, but once you've pushed her to the special 2 the first time, she will have that Bulwark for a while, and then you need to be careful blocking, which honestly is going to make it harder to push her to the special 2 the second time. You can potentially wait this out, but just acknowledging that problem there, sometimes it's going to be tough to avoid the special 1. Additionally, hits in this special attack gain a bunch of crit rating. That's more for the attacker. Special 3, this cannot be activated if Psionic Mode is active, This is very important because it activates Psionic Mode and increases its duration, and then also grants a large power efficiency passive until it expires. That's why it can't be activated while it's already active, because then you could just loop things forever. Once you do this, it is going to expire, but you probably have minimum 18 seconds of uptime up to 28, and in that 28 seconds, you have a massive discount on how much your specials cost, meaning you can just spam them and you can gain a bunch of prowess, stack a bunch of Neuroshocks that are ticking 200% faster. And at the start of this, you gain 6 indefinite prowess passives so that when you do next leave this mode, you're guaranteed to hold on to at least 3 passives. Because remember, you only lose 3 and you gain 6 here, plus any that you gained from throwing all those specials. So the special 3 is not really any more dangerous on defense than any other special 3, but on offense, this is how you really get things going with her. But that basically is Captain Britain. On offense, you want to go to the special 3 and then throw a bunch of special 1s and special 2s. Knock the opponent down mostly with heavies to ramp Neuros on the way. And then on defense, both her special 1 and her special 2 have certain threats associated with them. You're going to want to bring Cowardice whenever you can to mitigate them. And then she has a few updates to existing synergies. For the most part, this is just swapping out old damage sources, making things play better with her Psionic Mode effects. The effects for other champions are, as far as I know, completely unchanged. Not a whole lot going on here. Honestly, most of it is the changes to the main kit. So yeah, that's Captain Britain. It's a fun little kit. Big yellow numbers from prowess. Neuroshocks are fun. She counters miss, unstoppable, and evade. It's a nice little utility package on offense. Yeah, let me know how you're feeling about this one in the comments. Happy to chat. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and take care.